Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, April 20th. Quite a chilly morning once again here in the Mid-Atlantic region and the northeastern part of the nation. Temperatures down in the 30s in most suburban locations to the north and west of the big cities. It stays chilly again overnight tonight, but we are now at the beginning stage of a nice stretch of weather for the Mid-Atlantic, the northeast U.S., and a warming trend. We'll certainly climb into the 50s this afternoon in places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, the 60s on Thursday, and then 70 to 75 degrees likely for afternoon highs on Friday. It stays relatively mild throughout the upcoming weekend and even warmer again for the Sunday, Monday time frame after a little bit of a drop in temperatures for Saturday. Is this the end of the cold shots? Unfortunately, the answer is probably no. There's another decent looking cold shot coming in about a week's time, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, and we'll get into some of the reasons why over the next couple of minutes. We talked about this the other day, the North Atlantic Oscillation. This is a teleconnection index that gives us a kind of an overview of what's going on up across the North Atlantic in terms of a temperature and pressure type of pattern. When it's in negative territory during the winter season or even now in the early part of the spring season, it generally is a favorable sign that cold air outbreaks can make their way from northern Canada all the way into the central and eastern U.S. This is the kind of a pattern here that a snow lover would root for during the middle part of the winter. January, February, you're really dying for a negative NAO and a negative sustained AO if you like snow and cold. This time of the year, it just brings about some miserable weather. Of course, it resulted in a good accumulating snowstorm for the interior earlier this week of the Mid-Atlantic Northeast U.S. Well, this is the pattern going forward. Red represents a forecast going right into the beginning part of May. And this is the neutral line right here. And notice, we kind of shoot up into positive territory, but then drop sharply right into negative territory over the next few days and stay in negative territory as we go through the last week of April into the first week of May. This is suggesting, yes, there's at least another cold air outbreak coming for the Great Lakes, the Mid-Atlantic region, and the Northeast U.S. And I point this out because, of course, there's sensitive vegetation out there this time of the year. Whenever you get down to near freezing, you have to be warned if you have any kind of important crops outside or any kind of newly planted sensitive vegetation. It looks like there may be another cold shot to worry about in about a week's time. Well, to provide some supporting evidence for another cold air outbreak, this is the Arctic Oscillation, and it's kind of a closely related cousin to the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation. And again, well, both of these are negative territory for a sustained period of time. That's generally a favorable pattern, a favorable signal for cold air outbreaks to make their way from Canada into the eastern U.S. And similar to the NAO, it kind of shoots up into positive territory. The black here are the observed values, and the red, the forecasted values. It drops into negative territory over the next few days and stays there right into the first week of the month of May. It looks like we will have cold air outbreaks right into the first week of the month of May in the Great Lakes, the Mid-Atlantic region, and the northeastern part of the U.S. Well, when you get a sustained period of negative NAO and negative AO, what often happens is you have a blocking pattern set up. Higher heights than normal, higher pressure than normal generally tend to set up over places like Greenland, northeastern Canada, the Hudson Bay region, and with high pressure, higher than normal pressure in that part of North America, that is a kind of a favorable upper level pattern for cold air outbreaks to work their way from northern Canada into the central and eastern U.S. And we'll take a look at what happens over the next week or so. Let's move forward. What we're looking at is the ensemble run of the GFS from last night. It's 06E, and all the orange represents higher heights than normal. And we actually have a nice warming trend beginning right now in the eastern half of the nation, as indicated here by higher heights than normal, a high pressure region building into the eastern U.S. Look at this. By the time we get to late Friday night time frame, we'll be seeing temperatures at 70, maybe 75 degrees D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. But watch what happens as we evolve into next week. Stays relatively nice. This is now the Saturday afternoon forecast map. Again, we're looking at 500 millibar height anomalies. And look at Greenland here in northeastern Canada. Watch what happens as we evolve into the early part of next week. Here we have kind of a diminishing of the higher heights to normal, but they then move right back into place, and here we are now about a week away from tomorrow. Next Thursday, April 28th, we have low pressure troughiness setting up along the eastern seaboard, and here we go, kind of a higher pressure, higher heights than normal setting up to the north over Greenland, which is right here over northern part of Canada. So we have a blocking pattern setting up at the same time. A trough of low pressure kind of sets up along the eastern seaboard going into the early part of the month of May. This is now all the way out to May 1st, Sunday, May 1st. Higher heights than normal right here to the northern part of Canada over Greenland, and trough setting up over the northeast and the mid-Atlantic region, an upper level trough. Again, we're looking at 500 millibar height anomalies. So the bottom line is, with that sustained NAO going negative and the sustained AO in negative territory, watch out for some more high latitude blocking, some more upper level troughiness over the eastern seaboard, and cold air outbreaks not quite done yet, even into the first week of the month of May. Well, let's now get back to the CONUS, the continental U.S., using the GFS model run. This is the operational version, not the ensemble version that we just showed a moment ago. By the way, all these maps from tropicaltidbits.com. Starting off today here at midweek on Wednesday, very cold at the 850 millibar level. We're looking at 850 millibar temperature anomalies. Very cold to start off today. Again, way down in the 30s, as just saw a moment ago. Last hourly report at Dulles Airport, for example, 33 degrees, some patchy frost in the area. Can have some patchy frost in some suburban locations late tonight, early tomorrow morning. Let's say north and west of Philadelphia, for example, Pottstown, Doylestown. Could have some patchy frost late tonight, early tomorrow as we drop back into the 30s. Again, we are beginning a warming trend right now, though. 50s today and 70 to 75 degrees in the I-95 corridor by Friday afternoon. Now let's move forward here kind of quickly here. We do warm up by the end of the work week, and it stays relatively mild into the upcoming weekend. This is the Saturday morning forecast map. We're kind of rid of the colder than normal conditions by the end of the work week and going into the weekend for the Great Lakes, the Mid-Atlantic region, and quite nice here stretch of weather. But we go farther downstream here, and here we go by next Tuesday, and finally a week from right now into next Wednesday. Here we go. Another cold air outbreak, and yes, this could bring some more threats of freezing or patchy frost into especially the interior Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. A week from now. We're looking at next Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. This is actually for next Wednesday, April 27th. Well, let's wrap up with the surface forecast maps. We had very, very heavy rain in the I-95 corridor region, the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. earlier this week, but we are now headed for a stretch of weather with relatively dry conditions, and really we need that here as we've had a lot of rain over the last several days in the northeastern quadrant of the nation. High pressure in control right now. Again, we begin a warming trend. Yesterday we were generally confined to the 40s along the I-95 corridor region from D.C. to New York City. Today the 50s, tomorrow the 60s, Friday the 70s. High pressure in control here. There is a frontal system cutting across the Great Lakes. It tends to weaken and loosen some of its punch as it comes through the northeast on Thursday night. In fact, as I said, Friday looks like a 70-degree day in D.C., maybe 75 in D.C. and 70 in New York City, Philadelphia. And it stays relatively mild right into the early part of next week. Here we are now, Sunday afternoon. Still not much happening along the eastern seaboard here. And then we go into the early part of next week. And here we go. We got the beginning stages here. This is next Tuesday morning of the next cold air outbreak. Notice again these dashed blue lines. The 540 line is certainly the front edge here of a cold air mass that is dropping from Canada, across the Great Lakes into the northeastern part of the nation. This is a rough positioning of that cold frontal system next Tuesday, and then by the time we get to next Wednesday morning, right here, we have yet another cold air outbreak a week from right now in this part of the nation. So we're not quite done with the cold air outbreaks for the Great Lakes and Mid-Atlantic and Northeast U.S., but we are now entering in a relatively nice stretch of weather that coincides with a warming trend beginning today, and it looks like the nice stretch of weather will go into the early part of next week. But watch out for another chill down, maybe Tuesday night, Wednesday of next week, a week from right now. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.